Before we begin, one quick question. Daniel and Babs, are you all here? Yes. If you call us together again and you ask Bo and Clarissa to hold forth, could we have happy hour first? Just a thought. What have we learned in the past 20 years? Central thesis. The last 20 years represent a bridge time between old forms of the church that are disappearing and new forms in process of development. American religion remains in permanent transition with uncertainties in ecclesiology, theology, evangelism, mission, and overall identity. Pluralism is the order of the day, a reality that Baptists invented and that many Baptists cannot accept. Across these 2 decades, while some were trying to control old forms of denominational connectionalism and others were trying to create new ones, many religious Americans moved in entirely different directions, reshaping religious institutions extensively. As an organization, CBF has done reasonably well given that it is caught between ecclesial paradigms. Observations include, number 1, Baptists in America, especially the South, are a case study in institutional and ideological transition, decline, and disconnection. 2, denominations now join megachurch, emerging church, and local church identities as one of multiple options for shaping American religious organizations. For CBF, a 21st century society method of connectional resourcing and ministry support seems a wise option. 3, transitions in American religious culture, clearly evident but often ignored in the 20th century, are now normative in many Baptist churches and families. Baptist groups across geographical, racial, and theological spectrum are in a continued state of reorganization, reassessment, and response to declining membership, waning finances, and loss of historical and theological identity. 4, while regional economic and racial divisions remain, a new generation of Baptist clergy and laity find themselves without old systems for passing on ministry, mentoring, and identity, but are compelled to worship and work together in changing neighborhoods, interracial coalitions, community organizations, and ecumenical interfaith networks. 5, as an organization, CBF has established only limited participation of Black and Latino churches in its own networks and collected gatherings, though a lot goes on the grassroots level. That must change. African American Baptist denominations are as embattled and declining as any Caucasian group, and the New Baptist Covenant Gathering was clear evidence of that. 6, new coalitions of Baptists offer multiple options for interchurch cooperation and ministry relationships. Partnerships between congregations and Baptist, non-Baptist groups for fellowship and shared ministry are beginning to take shape and are essential for the future. 7, newer generations of clergy and laity confront numerous paradoxes. On one hand, they reflect indifference to any denominational identity. Most have little or no history with Baptist organizations. Yet Baptist approaches to polity, localism, religious liberty, and individual conscience are strangely appealing to many who choose to explore the Baptist context. 8, years of controversy over Scripture, doctrine, and politics have obscured significant theological problems that extend denominational and ecclesial uncertainties. This is evident in uncertainties related to biblical interpretation, conversion, Scripture, baptism and the supper, ordination, and spirituality. 9, Baptists now confront the dilemma of their denominational image in the public square. Such public opinion often understands Baptists as either a highly sectarian movement splitting doctrinal, ethical hairs without compassion, or an old guard religious majority, the classic example of a declining denominational hegemony nationwide. 10, collective mission endeavors no longer dominate the Protestant landscape due to 1, high cost of sending missionaries, 2, ever-expanding direct missionary activity of local churches, 3, the rise of missionary efforts by groups outside the U.S. and the West, 4, financial shortages that threaten local church ministries, including global ministries, and 5, a burgeoning media globalism through Facebook, the net, Twitter, and direct communications. 11, The days of Baptist Protestant cultural dominance in the U.S. and in the South are over. The religious pluralism that 17th century Baptists essentially set in motion, even before the Enlightenment, has become the norm in American society. How can we use what we've learned to help each other in the fellowship? Number one, Baptist polity and practice lends itself to significant elements of postmodernism: story, localism, individualism, community, diverse spirituality, conversionism, conscience. This is in great contrast to the aging and often unbending polity of other more connectional Protestant groups. This is very important for future collaborations and connectionalisms. Two, amid transitions, churches continue to need resources for educating and securing ministers, cross-congregational fellowship, and strategies for global ministries. Many CBF resources meet those needs and should be cultivated. Three, churches, CBF, moderate, progressive, dare we say liberal, often, indeed increasingly, thrive in current environments because they have found their niche in ministry. Doing basic ministries, but with specializations that connect with people initially, if not long term. I could list those if you wanted to, some that I think fit that quite well. New initiatives for discovering, highlighting, and extending niche ministry are essential for all churches, especially those related to CBF. Four, in a time of permanent transition, niche ministry may offer the best short-term, perhaps long-term option for many CBF-related churches. Both churches and CBF need to strategize with and train ministers and laity for those kinds of ministries very intentionally. Five, strong state-based CBF organizations may have the best possibility for meeting the needs of local and regional congregations and should be cultivated accordingly. Six, a new generation of African American Baptist ministers seem open to extending their connections inside and outside Baptist life. Some have attended the newer schools or have contacts with respective communities in CBF-related churches. But CBF leaders cannot wait for them to discover this organization on their own. CBF must be intentional, as intentional in 21st century racial diversity as the American Baptist churches were in the 1970s. Talk about that model if you wish. Seven, a significant group of younger ministers, many graduating recently, find themselves cultivating new networks formally and informally. This is a time to cultivate them to the max. Eight, globalism is an essential element that must be extended alongside and beyond mission trips and traditional missionary connections. Nine, CBF has given extensive attention to theological education and has helped to shape new schools and Baptist houses across the country. These new schools provide a highly personalized theological education in smaller student bodies, offering significant opportunity for mentoring and community to Baptists and non-Baptists. Funding, recruitment of students, connection with churches, developing a new generation of scholar teachers offer great challenges but are essential to the future. 10, and finally, Baptists must confront their history, good and bad. Claim the best part as related to my list: believers' church, sacraments, ordinances, local church identity, autonomy, freedom of conscience, counterculture dissent, religious liberty, and the witness of an increasing minority. We should lead the way in an unashamed Christocentrism amid radical religious pluralism. Not easy, but if the 17th century Baptists can do it, we're shamed if we don't. It is our best hope of remaining a viable gospel people amid the transitions that continue to lie ahead. Thanks.